Good evening. I'll call the meeting to order. There are 7 members present tonight, so we will need 5 votes in affirmative to approve anything. The board is authorized to grant or deny a variance by Part 3, Section 60 of the Englewood City Charter. Anyone aggrieved by a decision rendered by this board may appeal that decision to a court of record. However, such appeal must be made within 30 days of this decision. Variance is effective at the end of the appeal period, and building permits for construction associated with an approved with variance will not be issued until the appeal period is ended. And building permits must be obtained and construction begun within 180 days of variance's effective date. The procedure for the meeting tonight is that the case will be introduced. Staff will give us an overview. Applicants will present their request, the reasons for that the variance should be granted according to their point of view. Proponents will be given an opportunity to speak, and opponents will be given an opportunity to speak. And then staff will readdress the board, and the board will close and have discussion and vote. So I think that's it. Do we want to take roll call?
Ms. Schmitz? Here. Ms. Flynn?
Present.
Schladorn.
Mr. Elstrom?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Here.
Mr. Rieger?
Here.
Quorum is present.
Okay. So the public hearing for case VAR2018-001 is open. Property at 3594 South Logan Street. Applicant is Peter Whalen. And let's go ahead and start with the staff report.
Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm that the testimony you will tell the truth.
I do.
State your name.
Eric Sampson. All right, so the first case on your agenda tonight is at 3594 South Logan Street. This is the First Bank property, and what they are requesting is to exceed the sign regulations in our zoning code to add a 5th blade style sign, elevated blade style sign to the building to increase visibility for westbound traffic on Hamden. So the sign is proposed to be 25 square foot in size, and the zoning in this area is M2, which is our mixed-use medical district. That also includes areas for offices, high-density residential, and limited retail zone. And so in terms of responses from the neighboring property owners, there was one with no objection directly to the east, and that the First Bank actually has an agreement with that property owner who has this parking structure right here, which is for the apartments across the street on Pennsylvania. And what that agreement was is there used to be some very large trees in the right-of-way. Those trees have since been removed, and part of that agreement is those trees are going to be moved back closer to the parking structure, kind of like right in here. And in that instance, I'm going to hop forward just a second. Okay, so this is what you have currently looking westbound on Hamden towards the First Bank property. So the trees that were pulled were kind of right along here, and they're going to be replanted this spring right up in here. So effectively, that is going to obscure the First Bank sign that's on this side of the building that you can see here. And so that's the basis for the request of the increase of the amount of signage that they're allowed. I do want to point out that for the First Bank building, they're allowed 4 signs based on the lineal feet of street frontage of the building. And so they have basically between 150 and 300 lineal feet. So that allows them 4 signs with a maximum of 235 square feet. So with the addition of the 5th sign and the 25 square foot in size that is proposed to be, the applicants are coming in at a total of 113 square feet, which is still well below the maximum allowed square footage of signage. These are some of the renditions of what the sign would look like and where it is proposed to be located on the side of the structure. And staff would like to note that for sign variances, there are a little bit different criteria when looking at the approval of sign variances than there are for just the original variance request. Mainly that there are some special circumstances such as topography, vegetation, other sign structures, et cetera, that impact the effectiveness of the sign or the signage on the building. So overall, staff would recommend approval of this variance request due to the nature of the coming, I would say, to be planted vegetation. And one more thing that with CDOT does not allow monumental signs in the right-of-way while I'm thinking about this. So, and the CDOT right-of-way is very, very close to the actual structure of the building. And so since they do not allow monument signs, they do allow elevated blade style signs, and they have no problem with that encroaching into their right-of-way.
What's a monument sign?
Oh, yeah, sorry. So a monument sign, it would be a sign that's placed on the ground.
Oh.
So, think of like, an apartment.
Oh.
Made out of like masonry.
Okay, gotcha.
So overall, that's...
Is this a two-sided sign so you can see it both from westbound and eastbound, or is it only from...
I believe so, yes.
Any other questions for staff at the moment? Okay, thank you. The applicant may come forward.
I do. Pete Whalen, 12470 Gold Spur, Conifer, Colorado.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Eric. My name's Pete Whalen. I'm the facilities manager for First Bank, headquartered out of Lakewood, Colorado here. The Logan Street branch manager, Jessica Schwartz, is here with me tonight. And so as far as First Bank goes, we primarily look for properties on corner lots, high visibility traffic. This is a relatively new branch for us. We opened this in May of 2016. Like any new business, visibility to traffic is important to us. And we do feel like our existing signs in the building are aesthetically placed to fit with the architecture of the building, and just with the CDOT right away, and our building setback, the parking structure, the landscaping that was and will be there is limiting the majority of the high volume of traffic going westbound, which we'd like to, even from the rear sign there, it was all obscured. It'll be obscured again for the most part. So when I was working with CDOT, no monument sign, elevated sign, so then keep the visibility to the corner for emergency vehicles and all that. All works out with them. And we feel that you've seen the First Bank cube orange. That's what we plan on putting up. It's a recognizable sign, so that's we think that will be aesthetically pleasing. And then along with replanting the trees in front of the parking structure, we're also cleaning up the landscaping over there, reweeding it, working on the low bushes, and we'll continue to do that for our neighbor there as part of our agreement with them. And so, along with these adjustments, I think we'll create some more visibility, like many of the businesses up and down Hampton that have the monument signs that you see. And that's about it. Thanks for your consideration, and appreciate you looking at this request.
So I'm a little confused by the detail that was up there for a little bit that shows the drawing and elevation, then also has a section through the cabinet.
Sure.
Does this sign actually have a cabinet that's mounted next to the building, or is the sign actually mounted to the building itself?
The sign is actually mounted to the building itself.
So the vertical piece in here is really incorrect in that?
The vertical piece there is actually a cutout of the building itself.
Okay. And then what's the detail next to it representing?
The detail next to the sign
The
in the
bubble
orange
there,
is,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
In the bubble,
In the bubble.
circle.
It's a detail of how actually the cabinet is made. It's it'll, if it's blown up, you can see that would be an angled frame, aluminum, with a plex over the front or over both sides, eternally illuminated with LEDs.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Does the sign encroach into the CDOT right of way? Does it overhang it?
It encroaches over the CDOT right away. There's in this proposal, I have a sign off from the CDOT advertising inspector. Monument sign not allowed. She looked at this and she approved the raised sign, so it kept the visibility. So the CDOT sign criteria allows a sign attached to the building that just states the name of the business itself.
And so you need this sign because the sign on the eastern wall of the building will be blocked by the trees. Why not remove that sign? And then you're within the requirements of the sign code.
I think our requirements are, if I'm not mistaken, is a sign per elevation. And we do have a sign facing south. If you flip to another page on this, we can point out where those signs are. We if that was allowed, that may, and they can correct me, but that may be another variance to have two signs facing the same elevation.
No, I'm saying remove that sign, right? The issue,
Right.
What you're asking us to approve is 5 signs where you're allowed 4 per the code. And what I'm understanding the reasoning for this is that there will be trees there blocking, no, go back, blocking that sign.
Right.
So why not remove that sign, put up your blade sign, and you're within the requirements of the code?
We could do that, although I'm not sure that is the code. I thought the code was one sign, so much square footage, but one sign on an elevation. This being the east-facing elevation, the blade sign would be the south-facing elevation, and we already have a sign facing south. And that sign facing south, I'm not sure how to do the...
This says the request is to exceed the maximum signs allowed in order to erect a 5th sign. So is the variance to allow a 5th sign, or is the variance to allow 2 signs on a south-facing?
No, the variance is to allow a 5th sign.
So again, why not remove this sign so you just have 4 signs?
If that is the sign code, we could do that. It was my understanding with working with the community development before Eric joined the crew that it was also one sign per elevation. But we could do that.
Is there an entrance on the east side of the building? Can you walk up from that parking lot?
No.
feel like you're getting visibility from that east sign or will continue to, or not?
The east sign?
Yeah, the east elevation sign.
No. Sorry, I'm so sorry. We had more pages here. The trees that will go up,
That one?
they were hanging. They were pretty mature trees. They were hanging over the sidewalk for the most part, up all there, and you couldn't see any of the building at all. The trees that are required for the city of Englewood will grow to a certain height that basically they'll still fill out, and they'll be coming out to at least this far over here, and also at least probably that high from this visibility standpoint.
Okay, I was just trying to follow up on Ms. Schladron's question about, is it something we should be thinking about removing that sign in order to avoid this issue or not? But, just trying to understand it, how much you want to keep it or not.
I don't see anything in our regulations that require a sign per sign.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you. Would anybody else like to speak in favor of this? How about anybody that would be opposed to it? Pass those back down. They didn't get on the other end. I didn't fail to state that we do have notification of public posting on this. All right. If nobody else wants to speak about it, then any other questions for staff? Or?
I do have a question for staff. Can you explain to me how the sign code interplays with all the signs that are on each of the windows along Hampden? As I drove by, every window has a U.S. Bank sign in it. It seemed to me like there was quite a bit of signage as you drove down. Is that not considered a sign for the calculation of number of signs under the sign code?
So we have for window signs in our code, we have the language that says for window coverage, maximum 25% of total glazed area on a facade, not to exceed 80 square feet on any one facade, and the number no limit provided 25% of window coverage. Maximum is not exceeded.
Thank you.
In terms of counting signs, does a sign like that's coming out from the wall of the building, does that count as one or two signs because it has two sides?
It's one.
It's just one.
The square footage is counted for double the face, though, or not?
Okay.
Anything else for staff? All right. What do you guys think?
Public hearing?
Do we need a discussion? Close the meeting. Close the public portion of this, yes.
Sorry. I think if we take away the east sign, then you're going to have a blank brown building for a very long time until those trees get mature. So I don't think that's the right way to approach that. Because I travel up and down this road all the time. It's just a blank. And they're more than 100 square feet. I mean, they could easily take every sign off and double their size of signage, and then we'd be seeing a very large advertising. They just want something simple and useful. I think, again, you're under 100 square feet of what's allowed. Square footage is, they just want one additional.
I guess that's my thinking, too, that because we're under the total square footage, the sign count is not nearly as important. I understand the need for it, and I don't really see us necessarily having to force taking that down and spending the money on it since it's already there.
You'll still see it.
Yeah.
The sun's been on it enough, it'll still say First Bank if you take the sign down.
I mean, I'm struggling with whether there's a hardship here because there is an alternative that wouldn't require a variance. I mean, these other considerations, they kind of fall outside our criteria, but I could be convinced that they are inside as well.
Okay, if there's not further discussion, somebody want to make a motion?
I move that case VAR 2018-001, how's that possible? Anyway, be granted a variance to exceed the maximum number of signs in order to place the fifth blade style sign 25 square feet in size.
I second.
Thank you. Just we ask for further discussion, if there is any. Otherwise, we vote. All right. Okay. No discussion.
Wait.
Oh, it's my lucky day.
We're all avoiding making the findings because it requires thinking. Okay, so
How did you vote?
okay. I voted yes. I believe all of the criterion are met. The first criterion is that there are special circumstances or conditions, such as the existence of buildings, I'll skip around, vegetation, sign structures, and other matters on adjacent lots or within the adjacent right-of-way, which would substantially restrict the effectiveness of the sign in question, provided, however, that such special circumstances or conditions must be peculiar to the particular business or enterprise to which the applicant desires to draw attention and do not apply generally to all businesses or enterprises. We heard in the testimony that there is a vegetation agreement that is a special circumstance or other matter on an adjacent lot that will substantially affect the visibility of the sign at some point over time soon when those trees grow. And this is, I see it as peculiar to this particular business. The second criterion is that a variance will not weaken the general purpose of this title nor the regulations prescribed for the district in which the sign is located. So we are still far below the total square footage of sign area. It's adding one additional sign to the usual max of 4, but the impact is quite small considering the square footage that could occur. So I don't think it weakens the general purpose or the zone regulations. Third criteria is the variance will not alter the essential character of the district. Same reasons as for the second. Fourth criteria, variance will not substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use of adjacent conforming property. We didn't hear any testimony that would suggest that would happen.
I also voted yes for those reasons stated.
I voted no. The applicant testified that he could remove the sign that'll be blocked, and the reason he came forward for the variance, and therefore would be able to comply with the code. I think if council wanted our signage to be regulated only by square footage, the code would say that, but they have inserted a number of signs, and they must have had a reason for that. And I think in this situation, the applicant could comply with the city code.
I voted yes for the reasons previously stated by those who voted yes.
I voted yes for the reasons stated.
I voted against. I don't believe the first criteria has been met for the special circumstance when taken into consideration to exceed the limit of 4 signs by code. He can remove 1 sign and meet code.
I voted yes for the reasons stated. Thank you. right. The second one this evening is public hearing on case number VAR2018-004. Applicant is Darin and Andrea Larew. Property is 3275 South Downing Street. It's a request variance for second-story addition to an existing one-unit dwelling to encroach into the required setback.
I do. Will Charles, just since I didn't say my name, but I didn't say my name yet, so I figured I would cover. Let me go ahead and skip up to ours. Okay. Yeah, so variance 004 for the year is a variance to encroach 21 feet into the required 25-foot front setback. This would be for the homeowners to add a second-story addition to their currently existing house. This property and all properties within a couple blocks of it are all in the R1C zone district, so that's for single-family residential. This property does not have any previous variances granted to it. This would be the first one for it. The subject property is 6,250 square feet. The currently existing house has a footprint of 1,335 square feet. The addition that they're proposing is more or less around the 600 range square feet addition for the second story addition. This house was constructed in 1900, well before this area was zoned or annexed into Englewood. This area was actually annexed in 1946, so about 46 years after the house was actually constructed. As far as the criteria goes for variances, the location of the existing structure is what makes this one unique. If you can see from this picture, as you can see kind of on the aerial, it is basically pushed up straight to the front. There's a shrub line in between there and the sidewalk, and that's essentially it between it and the front property line. The other thing that's unique about this is they're also proposing a addition that's smaller than what the bottom floor is. This would help alleviate some of the burden on the side property lines, as well as with it being so close to the street. It could also help with just kind of the visual and load of the property. As well, their proposal would not create, the second story addition would not be any closer to the property line than what is already currently existing. And that's the staff report. If you have any questions.
Are we just looking at the front front setback because the sides are adequate?
Correct. Just the front. The closest side setback is, I think on the house currently is like 8 feet 6 inches or something like that. Something around 8 feet inches. And then the other one is further away than that. And the side setbacks for the zone district would be 5 feet.
And if they were putting the addition on the back of the house instead of the front of the house, would they need the variance?
No. Depends on the size. It would be a 25-foot front setback. The one thing to kind of consider, and I apologize for not having a Google Maps image of this, but from what it looks like on there, the actual roof structure of the back portion of the house is a completely different kind of roof setup and structure. The front is kind of a hip roof, and then the back is kind of a flat roof.
So is that like a Maybe,
So-
is that like an enclosed porch or something like at one time? They've,
That might be a
So what-
question for the
the
applicant.
applicants?
Up here, yeah.
Further questions for staff? Thank you.
Thank you.
The applicant may come forward.
I do.
I do. Darin Larew, 3275 South Downing Street.
And Andrea Larew, 3275 South Downing Street. So they did a pretty good job of stating our issue with going up, and it is just on the front. But without the approval of the variance, we won't be able. And Darin could explain more why we can't do it, but without this approval, we wouldn't be able to go up. And you could answer the question back. I forgot what the question was. Back addition was put on.
Like a mud roof that wasn't original with the house.
That's what I thought.
So if you put that first in the back of the house,
It's not structurally sound for it.
wouldn't help you.
Do you have anything further you'd like to add to what staff has already talked about? Okay.
So, sorry, with the back of the house was an addition at some point? Like,
Before I got it, I don't know when that was.
okay. Okay. And is it like bedrooms back there, or do you know what?
It's one bedroom and then a little mud room.
Okay.
But it just has a little shed roof,
Okay. Okay.
just a little 4-foot foundation.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be an adequate foundation to
Is this a common situation on the block of having the houses right up on the street, or is it pretty rare?
There's two of them, one on the corner.
Okay, yeah, I saw that one on Floyd.
There's two houses there. They were both built. Two sisters built the houses, apparently.
Okay.
I imagine it was a dirt road back then.
Yeah.
The horses were in back.
And I would say too, there aren't pictures of the outside of the house, but personally, I think this would actually be both of our neighbors on both
All right. Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak in favor of this variance? Anybody in opposition? In that case, any further questions for staff? We'll close the public hearing, if I can learn to talk.
It's unique. There's not many houses with this close setback to the road. It doesn't seem like any second floor addition, which other people in the zone district can do, can be practically built on top of the house with the setback that exists.
Yeah, and if there were, I mean, we'd be expanding the lot coverage if it was somewhere else on the lot too. I mean, that it is constrained that way.
Yeah, I'm not particularly seeing alternative ways to add on to that house very easily. Looks like from the site plan there's a garage in the back as well. Any other discussion? If not, I entertain a motion.
I'll move that case VAR 2018-004 at 3275 South Downing Street be granted a variance for a second-story addition to an existing one-unit dwelling to encroach 21 feet into the required 25-foot front setback.
I second.
Okay. Any other further questions? If not, we'll vote.
Oh, you're going to do this to me on my second meeting. I am voting yes for this variance. I do think that it meets all the criteria. The first criteria, there are definitely unique physical conditions to this property. It is built right on the right-of-way, right up against the setback. I think that it is consistent with the intent of the zone district. It doesn't create any public health, safety, or welfare issues. The house is existing there. I don't think adding a second story has any greater impact on the neighbors or the neighborhood. It will not impair the use or development of the adjacent conforming properties or alter the essential character of the neighborhood. Because as I said before, it's not going to be any closer to the property line than it is now. It's simply just going up in height. And it's not due to a self-imposed difficulty or hardship. The property's been there since 1900, well before the city was even incorporated.
I voted yes for the same reasons. Clearly, if there weren't a house on the lot, we wouldn't say yes to putting there, but it's been there, and it's been there for over a century, so there's nothing we can do about that, and yes for all the other reasons stated.
I voted yes, and the only thing I would add to the previously stated items is that other properties are afforded the right to expand in this vicinity, so that goes towards the first criterion, is that I voted yes so that they can enjoy that privilege as well.
I voted yes for the reasons already stated.
I voted yes for the reasons stated.
I too voted yes for the reasons stated.
I concur with the reasons stated. Right. Our third case tonight is...
Folks who've already had their hearings can leave, or they could stay and enjoy.
You can hang out, enjoy the evening
One
with
more.
us, so that's fine. Yeah. Case VAR 2018-005, applicant Tim Politis. The property is 900 East Hampton Avenue. The request is a variance to reduce the minimum side setback to construct an addition.
I do. Eric Sampson. Okay, so this property is at 900 East Hamden. It is the old Bill's auto repair service shop that's been vacant for quite some time now. So the variance request is to construct an addition to this existing structure, and they would like a 0-foot setback. And where I'm pointing the red laser is where the proposed addition is to be. And they would like to keep a 0-foot setback to conform with the existing structure on the site. The original building had been constructed in 1952, and it had been constructed with a 0-foot setback on the east side. There have been no previous variances on this property. And part of this addition is going to be for the applicants are renovating this building to turn it into a grow and gather, kind of a unique local kind of vegetable garden, if you will, or produce. So, like I said, the structure had been built in 1952 with a 0-foot setback. And staff felt that if they were to meet the 5-foot setback in this zoning district, what you would have, jump back to that, you would have kind of this 5-foot area in here where it would be pretty difficult to landscape or maintain any sort of vegetation whatsoever in that area due to sunlight concerns and just the small area of the space, and it would kind of make that portion of this property basically devoid of use for the owner. To hop back, this is in the M2 zoning district again. This is our mixed-use medical. And overall, staff would recommend approval of this variance.
Can you clarify for me where the R2B line is? On that zoning thing, it looks like it's one house away, but I'm not sure if that's the case or not.
Yeah, so there's one property to the south that's still in that M2 district, and then the next house to the south of that is the R2B.
Do you happen to know what's on the east side of the alley?
Yeah, so on the east side of the alley, I think we have some public comment about that as well. And I wanted to...
Yeah, what's across from the alley?
Yeah, so this, here we go.
Perfect.
All right, so this was I think it's a 4-unit residence.
Nope.
You don't have your chance.
So yeah, there is a multi-unit dwelling structure across the alley.
And do you know what the setback is on that one? Because it short.
I think it was about a foot.
So how wide is the alley?
I don't know.
And so this is where the addition is coming out, like from where Bill's Auto is out to where this car is? About how far is it coming out to where that car is? Or?
Yeah, so the proposed addition is, would extend out maybe 25 feet. I can't really read this on the site plan, so I don't want to speak to that. But
25 feet?
The applicants can.
The site plan is showing a 16-foot alley, and the setback on this other building at from 0 to 0.4. So it's right on the alley as well.
So does this, I presume at some point the city will pave this alley. Does it cause problems, or are we complicating problems for paving this alley by increasing the length of this 0-foot setback building, and they're trying to pave right up to the building?
So what I can speak to on that is I know there would be some improvements required in the alley for drainage purposes. But that's all I would be comfortable saying without engineering or utilities here. Or traffic, excuse me.
2 questions. That concrete barrier right now, is that essentially a 0-foot setback line? So effectively there is a 0-foot setback barrier there now. And the second question, when it was built in 1952, I presume it was to code then?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
How tall is that little hip wall there?
Oh,
That little concrete barrier?
maybe a foot and a half.
They didn't need any sort of variance to put that in?
Or else it was constructed at the time the original building was constructed.
Okay.
We don't have any information as to when that little bump was installed.
It used to be in the already structure there. And then
Yeah, it's basically a
That's what it
retaining
looks like.
wall for the alley at this point.
yeah.
So the city's position is that the 5-foot side setback would be difficult to maintain. How is that situated differently than the rear setback that's also 5 foot?
So basically it's just largely because the backside, number one, is south facing, so you do have the potential to get some amount of sunshine in there. Number two, that's not really they're not requesting to expand on that setback. So yeah, that wasn't something that was considered.
And then, do we know when that setback was changed, like from which zoning code revision? That's a hard search to do, but when it went from 0 to 5?
I don't recall. I don't know.
What other zone districts have 0? I think Central Business District does, right? Do we?
Yeah, certain commercial districts and some industrial uses.
Okay.
So do we know when 960 East Hampton was built?
I am not sure.
Because it's fairly recent, too.
It's been recent.
I'm just curious why that one didn't have to meet the same setback, or whether a variance was granted for it.
I don't.
Okay. Any further questions for staff at this point? All right, thank you. The applicant may come forward and address us.
My name is George Gastus, 3800 South Corona Street.
My name is Tim Politis. I would excited to speak as the architect, but I would like to defer to the owner to talk about the vision plan first. We'll address some of the questions.
Good evening. Again, my name is George. I'm the property owner and I guess you call project champion. As Eric mentioned, we are proposing to expand that area in question to building off of an existing east wall that already exists along the alley. So aesthetically and functionally, having to honor that setback if you do that route. There's a lot of space, and sort of the intention of that, we believe, is a pretty subtle expansion that continues to respect the history of the building and the area. We believe it would look better that way, and also obviously serve our purposes better. What we intend to do, as Eric touched on, is year-round indoor hydroponic farm, food farm, to be clear, and a gathering space, a food hall of sorts, but in a very small scale where we can have neighborhood events, food-centric events that will service the community and allow us a way to sell produce we grow and eventually products that we aim to develop from the produce that we grow on site and potentially from other local farms we hope to support and help promote. And the later phases of our project, we have under discussion a small-scale food and beverage concept that more than likely would go in that space in question.
Okay. I guess we'll let you both speak, and then if we have questions, we'll come back to one or the other of you.
My name is Tim, and I am the architect working with George. My firm, One Line Studio, focuses on adaptive reuse. And so what we see is this great potential of this existing garage that was built 66 years ago, and how to maintain and respect its existing structure, its existing form and character. And then there's one particular image that I wanted to show you, and this is the area where it says Bill's Auto Service on the left that we're looking at. If we were to have a 5-foot setback, what would happen is the wall for any addition would actually go straight into this garage door on the left. And that opening is something that we would like to respect as part of the original structure, even if the new addition is to come up and butt up against it. And that's something that the integrity of that structure would be compromised to a degree if we had to honor that full 5-foot setback. One thing that we are really looking to is this is a unique situation where this was built on the alley right-of-way line, and there's very little room to maneuver this. Our new addition would actually be stepped back 2 feet further for 2 reasons. One is so that we can actually build a footing, because we build differently today, and we are not allowed to cross that right-of-way line. And more importantly, that the reason why we want to do this is so that we can kind of keep that alleyway a little bit wider and provide additional visibility, and also be able to address the fire concerns. So someone had asked earlier how wide the alley is. It's 16 feet, and to meet the fire codes, we have to take the center line of that and go to the walls. And if we have a 10-foot clearance, we're not required to put a fire-rated wall up in that place, and we can keep it more open to light and have more ability to even put wood outside on the building as opposed to having non-combustible construction. One of the things that is unique is, if I'll go to this neighboring site here. So in addressing, we've established that the existing concern, there's a unique condition where this building was already set up on the property line, and we're trying to maintain as much of the existing integrity and character of that existing structure before we do an addition to it. But on the left here, you can see that this property that was built, I believe, according to county records in 2008, actually has a 0.7-foot setback, which is 8.5 inches. And I don't know the history of how that was built, but that's something that is already occurring in the M2 zone right across the street. And there's a precedence of development, particularly in this streetway and this block of developments being pushed up very close to the right-of-way in the alley. So we would be continuing that venture. But I'd like to take a step back and talk about the overall intent. One of the best things about this site and George's plan here is that the M2 district, if you'll notice, there's a R2B just south of there, and it is all single-family residences there. Just to the north of Hampton Avenue, where our site is, they are now constructing large parking garage structures there, and it's turned from an area that used to be quite open, at least in a parking lot sort of way, to now having 5-story garages right across the street. This is becoming a very dense street. There's also greater development down Hampton on all sides, both east and west. And what this property is going to do is, if you'll notice right here, there is in the corner, there is an opening here. What we are doing is creating an urban garden and a plaza, and it's actually a vertical garden. There's going to be green roofs, and you actually climb up with that. So this becomes an urban oasis, a garden oasis that's going to be in the middle of this very dense area, and it helps to transition our development to the south, where you're going into the single-family houses with front lawns and greater setbacks that would normally be in that area. So the reason and the rationale for locating the addition in the alley side is not only to respect the existing structure, but to provide that opening so that we can provide that garden and the open space that is attractive and is unique to this property. It's a condition that already existed as part of the original thing. At one time, it was all, I assume, cars that were taking up that space, and we are adapting that to become gardens. One final thing that I would like to point out is that besides the precedence, pardon me here, is the condition of the alley. This is a big deal. We understand that it's subpar from what we would like to see. One of the things about having to build up near the property line is that in order to pour a foundation, we have to dig up nearly right to the alley. And in doing so, right now the alley sits up in grade approximately a foot above the rest of the property. And that's why you see this retaining wall that is sort of sitting right here that's about a foot and a half high. What we need to do is replace that with another type of structure, which is going to be the building itself, that would support those grades and prevent the deterioration that's continuing to happen. If you'll notice over the years, the dirt alley has started to slug into the existing property. That's actually complicating the drainage. It's making the soils sort of unstable, and over time, it's just going to create further deterioration. By us being allowed to improve this, even which we're going to learn more about the standards of what we need to do to that alley to improve it to today's standards, but the drainage is going to have to be corrected to the right thing, and the soil will have to be stabilized. So that's something that is an added benefit that will add to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighbors who use this alley on a regular basis.
Is there any issue with that garage there, access of cars from the alley into that garage? I don't know if those neighbors were part of your neighbor notification.
I'm not exactly sure under what condition that was approved originally,
Yeah.
but to my knowledge, and if you can see even in this photo here, there's not evidence of car tracks backing up too far.
Okay.
So I would say somehow they are managing to make this 16-foot alley work. And that's 16 feet, by my understanding of the design code and experience in working with urban sites, is adequate for one-way traffic and pulling back. Would you like more? I'm certain people would, but it appears to be working.
So the 3 garage doors, those areas are going to be enclosed by the new addition? But they will be interior features?
Correct. So we will maintain some of the openings in that and maintain the character of those existing structure. But what we'd like to do is, if you'll notice, there's this little solid wall right there. It's not very much, but we'd like to tie into that because that's the sort of respectful of the existing character as well as the right place to put structure.
So is there a reason that you're asking for 0 setback as opposed to the 2 foot that you want to do, or?
Yes, for several reasons. One is we would like to put bollards up against within that additional 2 feet just to protect the building in case someone by accident did kind of back in too far or swerve. The one thing that the other reason for that is that the building will be set back at 2 feet, but the code does allow things like overhangs or other architectural features, the fenestration of the building, to actually encroach a little bit beyond that. And so to be safe, we just want to make sure that we have plenty of clearance to do that.
Okay. Other questions for the applicants? Thank you. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this?
I do. I'm Debbie Perry Smith, and my home address is 5475 South Clarkson Street in Greenwood Village. And I am the property owner of 960 East Hamden with the garage right there. I'll give you the details and answer the questions that you asked about. It was built in 2008. We actually built on the footprint of the building that was existing at the time, which was, if you may remember, the old lawnmower shop. If you've been in Englewood long enough. I've been here for 37 years. So that's why there was 0 setback built in the same area. It was a mid-century, 1950s building originally, which we tried to save, but it just didn't work. In answer to your question about the garage, I actually have had other city departments out there, in particular traffic with LAD, in asking, talking about the turning radius that Tim talked about. I'm glad to hear they're going to put ballast there. I'd like, because I'm honestly really not sure. Right now, one of the cars that's in there is a Mini, which works really well. But any other mid-size SUV and having 2 cars in the garage could be a little cozy you know, we may take more than 2 or 3 turns to get out of the garage safely. And to be real honest, yes, we have used the cut through to get down or out to back in and around. That's in, you know, at the end of the retaining wall there. The other piece is that alley has been an issue. I had sewer breakage there a year ago, had to put in new sewer. That is where the main sewer line runs for that neighborhood, is right down the middle of that alley. And so I do have, you know, some concerns about there's been sinking, and the city's been really good to come and put some fill in because the construction traffic down that alley right now is atrocious. That with utility trucks, et cetera, with the work that they're doing, and it's only one way in and one way out. So that has been an issue. And speaking to the drainage, which I was glad to hear Tim and George. By the way, I am all about his project. I think it's wonderful. I think we've just got to, it's like, where have you been all my life? Finally coming to Englewood and do this, because we actually owned a restaurant down the street for 20 years, and so it's nice to see this coming into the city. I am concerned about the drainage. There is a grade to the south of my building, and what that is going to do, the shadow issues with snow and the trash trucks going through there, and what's going to happen, there will be no melt off all winter long, trust me. Now, once you know, his building goes up. So what is the answer to that? I don't know. How we're going to resolve that. The other is, if it ends up being paved, would really like to see the utilities. And I did speak with, I believe it was a CenturyLink contractor, who said there are plans for the utilities there. You can't really see it in the picture, but it does come right across my windows. It's about 18 inches from it. There are plans to bury those, but it'd be nice if that happened before. If you end up having to pay to pave the alley before it gets, yeah, okay. If it, you know, before they pave it and tear up, if George ends up paying for it or the city does whatever, to have that done prior. So, all about the project. I love it. I just really would like to see how we're going to, you know, handle the drainage issues, the ice issues. Not that we've had much winter. But with the rain and the melt, then it does pool right there between our two buildings.
So the alley issues are not something that this board can really address. I mean, our role is really, are we going to allow the setback or not?
Right.
Would 5 feet help address any of those concerns that you've shared with us?
I really can't answer that. I mean, it would have to be some engineering to look at that and the grade. There is a project planned behind me, which will be another double condo with a driveway that will have to have some kind of a little bit of a grade to get up, so that more than likely will follow gravity and melt off and come down into the alley, which was affect his property as well, which he did mention some.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor of this? What about in opposition?
Hello? Oh, sorry. I do. Crystal Gannon? 3530 South Ogden Street. It's my first public hearing. Anyways, I live on the street just right on the other side of Ogden Street, and my only concern I have with the alleyway setback is the amount of foot traffic that we have in our neighborhood, and being able to see coming out of the alleyway like pedestrians. We have bus 35, a bus 12, and the art shuttle that go down Hamden, and my husband uses the buses, I do as well, and sometimes you really have to look out in the alleyways. So I can't see the plan. I don't have the plans right in front of me to really see how they're going to work, but my only concern is making sure that when a driver is coming down this alleyway, that they have good visibility of the pedestrians that are walking up down the street. We have an increase of density in our community now. my street is completely getting like double the population, if not more, with all the new development. And I just want to make sure that the safety of people using those sidewalks, we also have Craig's Hospital, so there's people in wheelchairs and such going down as well. I have friends with disabilities that use those sidewalks. I just want to make sure that we're also considering the driver and the pedestrian able to communicate when drivers come in an alleyway or pedestrians walking, that there's still some good visibility. And that's my only concern.
Okay, thank you. I would point out on this drawing the triangle that's up there at the end, and that's a site triangle.
Okay.
The city requires for the exact purpose that you're talking about.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure we're considering that. Thank you. Is there any other questions?
Anybody else that would like to speak in opposition?
I do. Paula Palmer, and I'm at 3580 South Emerson Street. And so I live at the very second to last house down that alleyway, and I've been there for 20 years. And my big concern is that's my only way in and out of my garage. And because I live just at the slope of the hill, that's where I park. And if they enclose it, it is going to make it very tight. It's hard to see right now, and it's a pretty good view. It's very hard to see. So that little triangle is, you can't see now. But my big concern is trash pickup. I just had Li's trash just not pick up last year because they said, I'm not coming down your alleyway anymore. So for 3 weeks, they just quit coming. And I had to switch. That's about 4 companies I had to try and call to get new service because they just won't come down the alley. So if they make it even tighter, I'm afraid my new trash company won't go down the alley. And it's hard enough now to get someone to go down there. So, and the price has gone up. That's my big concern. And then with the big heavy trucks, I know it seems little, but I can't put my trash out front. That's my only way to do it. So please keep.
Okay.
It seems little, but it's a huge thing to. In my situation, I just found out about this. No one sent me a notification about this meeting, or I would have been here. But I know I'm not the only one with this situation, parking this way. And I went to a meeting with Joe Jefferson in the last year regarding paving the alleyway, and they estimated it to be about $5,000 per household to pave alleyways. So it's not a very feasible cost for homeowners to do.
Any other questions? Thank you. Anybody else want to speak on this behalf? Yes. Come back.
The visibility is very valid and something considered pretty extensively in the design. And in addition to honoring the site triangle with the rounded corner of the building there, we've also had in the design, which I'm happy to share with anybody who's interested now or later. The entire curvature is all glass, almost floor to ceiling, but quite a bit. One, because it'll look really nice, we believe, but also to relieve, provide a bit more visibility as we approach the other side, which is already almost out to the sidewalk, as far as the tip. So I think some of that visibility issue will be much better than perhaps assumed. I'm not a developer. I'm not looking to flip this property and leave the neighborhood. This is my neighborhood too, and I'm here for the long haul. So I'm pleased to see that some of my neighbors are here. problems, will be welcomed by these folks and everybody else. More so the visibility issue.
Okay, thank you.
Where are you going to put your trash dumpsters?
Okay, I'd like to respond to that. If you'll notice in the parking lot on the left side of this drawing here, there's a proposed trash enclosure right where that little dot is, and that's where it's going to be. So we actually did not want it to happen in the alley because it is tight. One of the other things that I want to point out is that the building code, zoning code allows us to put things like a fence up against the property line. And so despite the fact that I certainly understand the idea about the visibility and the additional distance, there could actually be a wall that's 5 foot or greater in height that's right up against that property line, which would cause the equal asphyxiation there. And in fact, by the fact that we are stepping the building back and rounding the corner like George added, we'd actually be improving that situation and making it so that you wouldn't be building anything else back there.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing further, we'll close the public hearing.
I'm sorry, I don't recall if I saw this paperwork. Did they post?
Yes, I'm
Thank you.
sorry.
I'm sure it went around. I just couldn't recall if it was for this one.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to look at it?
No.
So yes.
Want to make sure if people said they didn't see it, that it was posted as promised.
Discussion? I guess, to me, the fact that they could do a fence there really mitigates any true concerns that I would share about the alley. That was my first reaction when I drove by there today. I think actually setting the building back the 2 feet is actually helping the situation. I think these guys seem to be addressing the concerns as well as they can, and it makes sense with how they're trying to tie the two buildings together. So I do think it's a unique situation in that regard because of where the setback already is.
Yeah, I think that the topography as well of how the site meets that alley is also something we can take into consideration there, that the building line will actually help address some of the issues already with the alley.
I think if the foundations are done right, it's actually going to be an improvement to the capability of the city to pave that when it gets to that point.
But even before then, it's going to that fill is not going to have to come in periodically.
Right. Other thoughts or questions? If not, we'll call for the vote.
Do we have a motion?
Oh, motion. Well, that would be good. Yes.
Let's vote on stuff.
Yeah, it is. Third time's not a charm, I guess.
Yeah.
Somebody like to make a motion?
I'll move that case VAR 2018-005 at 900 East Hampton Street be granted a variance to reduce the minimum side setback requirement to the adjacent alley from 5 feet to 0 feet in order to construct an addition to an existing structure.
Second.
It was Race.
Go ahead.
All right. Now we can vote.
I did vote yes. I believe the first criteria has been met upon unique physical conditions because the existing structure built in 1952 has a 0 foot setback to the alley. I do believe the second criteria has been met also. I believe the design team has gone above beyond to meet this criteria for the security of the public health and safety and welfare. The third criteria, I don't believe it permanently impairs the use or development of the adjacent conforming properties since the surrounding properties have already been developed. And the fourth criteria has been met in my opinion. I do not believe this is a self-imposed difficulty or hardship.
I voted yes for the reasons stated. And I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I know we're not a very popular board. We often get very silent rooms out there, and the issues that were raised, both for and against, were important for us to consider. So I appreciate people raising those for us.
I too voted yes for the reasons stated.
I voted yes for the reasons stated.
Voted yes for the reasons stated, and also do respect the concerns of the citizens with the alley usage. I almost leaned toward no, but I realized that moving it back another 5 feet, there'd still be a huge shadow, there'd still be snow in the alley, and the integrity of the building is best the way it is, and the line that's there with the retaining wall now really doesn't change the width of the alley. So
I voted yes for the reasons stated.
I voted yes for the reasons stated, and I do agree. It's nice to have you guys talking to us and understanding what the issues are. Hopefully they're mitigating most of those concerns, and we'll continue to work with you guys, and we appreciate it.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right. Guess we'll move to approval of the meeting minutes from March 14th, 2018. Anybody want to make a motion to approve those?
I move to approve the Board of Adjustment Appeals meeting minutes from Wednesday, March 14, 2018.
Second.
Second.
All right. Any corrections or discussion? So the people that were here would vote on that.
Yes.
The rest of us would abstain. So I'll abstain, and Ms. Schmitz will abstain.
Oh, what?
You're abstaining? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved? And approval of findings of fact. Case VAR 2018-02, 3246 South Lincoln Street. Have a motion to approve.
I move to approve the findings of fact and conclusions of case VAR 2018-002 for 3246 South Lincoln Street.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? That we're here?
Thank you for the correction by email.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Anything from staff this month?
Future variances at this time, so we should not.
Never again.
Ever.
Right.
Yep.
We're on holiday for the summer.
Moratorium on variances.
I have a question. Is there a limit on how many can be heard in an evening?
Unlimited.
I just wanted to know.
How would you throw that thought out to the universe? Play it that up.
We should have popcorn while we're doing
That's what I'm going to have if we leave here tonight. Attorney's choice.
Nothing to add today.
Nothing to add. Board member, anybody? All right. In that case, adjourned.
Awesome. Thanks, Randy.
Been waiting all night for that.
It's an unruly bunch.
Yep.